Hi, this is Jeff. We are focusing today on basics of multi-org access control, or I will call it MOAC, and some inherent limitations. This is going to be a short little video on how to set up MOAC and some of the benefits, and then I'll talk through one limitation that I've found in the way that Oracle's designed this that needs to be enhanced. So what I've got here is a little white paper I put together, a little article on this that I'll publish to the website as well that you can download. But multi-org access control is something introduced in Release 12 by Oracle. It's been out for a while. It's been widely used, obviously, by lots of organizations. There's a lot of benefits to it. One of the benefits of it is consolidating multiple responsibilities into a single access point or a single responsibility. So in essence, what it does is it allows you to access multiple organizations or operating units through a single responsibility. So it's been something that's been long overdue. Oracle has had this on their development list for a long time, and it really enhances or adds value to those organizations that do shared service processing throughout the organization, whether it's orders, payables, receivables, a variety of modules are supported by multi-org access control. So briefly, what I'm going to talk about initially is the limitation that exists that I would hopefully you guys can understand this limitation and support a enhancement request that I helped them develop on the client I was at earlier this year. So one of the big limitations is really the fact that a lot of profile options get set at the responsibility level. So I just have an example here from a Vision instance hosted by Solution Beacon, where I've got an Austrian AP responsibility and a Germany AP responsibility, and a lot of European countries, amongst other countries in the world, have localizations using the JG module. So they use the JG product, European localizations. And then define the territory associated with that using the profile option JG territory. So here I just queried up the standard profile options that are associated, the JG profile options that are associated with these. So you can see that there is a need for associating certain profile options at the responsibility level. And unfortunately, in the original or the initial rollout of multi-org access control, Oracle didn't provide a way to apply the same profile option, like JG territory, to, twice, once for Austria in this case, and once for Germany. So that means if you have responsibilities you're trying to consolidate or shared services organizations that you're trying to develop access for and security for, where you have individual responsibility profile options that have to be set for whatever reason. In this case, this happens to be supporting localizations. You can't combine those. They have to be independently developed, just like they were in Release 11.9 earlier. So the client I was on earlier this year, we had this issue. Unfortunately, Oracle didn't have a workaround for it right now, and so they filed an enhancement request. And that enhancement request is in this document. It's 103-61672. So if you're in this similar circumstance where you're either using localizations or you've got profile options that have to be applied at the responsibility level that wouldn't be the same for a MOAC responsibility, then you need to log an SR and reference this enhancement request and just say that you're supporting this enhancement request. And hopefully you can follow then the actions related to Oracle providing a response to this enhancement request. And here I am just switching over to my Oracle support. I'm going to enter this enhancement request number. All you have to do is enter it in the search box here, and it's the only thing that comes up right here. So it says enhancement request ER, want MOAC to be compatible with localizations. You say the severity is 2, very desirable feature, and it just goes through it and provides a little background. It's not a lot to it, but if you want, I just thought I would show you how this enhancement request is. At least for now, it's coded with EMEA for the EMEA localizations. It becomes an issue with any localization. So there's that. Next, we're going to go through and look at how you build a global security profile, and I've got all these in screenshots here, and how you set up and use the standard functionality for multi-org access control. So global security profile form is what you'd use that's in a variety of different human HR responsibilities. Unfortunately, it's not in the security administrator, system administrator responsibility. It really belongs there. Security profiles and global security profiles have really evolved out of the HR world, but are used for other things, like security profiles are used for fixed assets module. Global security profiles are obviously used for across the application. So what I typically recommend, I made a comment in this article, is that a security administrator, which some people will refer to as system administrator because that's the responsibility they typically use, but I call it security administrator. So whoever's administering security for Oracle e-business suite should have its own custom responsibility. You should be building things into that responsibility that they need to do their jobs, like global security profiles, other things like security rules and GL maybe that are centralized, and then the standard things you'd use like users, responsibilities, menus, request groups, functions, and so on. So I'm not sure how you're going to access this global security profile form is really the point. You can add it to the system administrator menu, or if you already have a custom responsibility for security administrators, then you can add it to that menu. So it's a relatively simple setup. This is the configuration. I just added JTH MOAC security profile. I like to name it as MOAC in there because as you'll see later when you get into applying profile options, the list of values actually shows you all security profiles, including those that are not global in nature, those that are just set up through the standard security profile form. So the gist of what you're doing here is securing organizations by hierarchy or the organization list. So in this case, I'm just listing 3 separate organizations: the Vision Operations, Vision Services, and Vision Corporation. And just to contrast this with how you typically would set these up in a non-MOAC environment, the responsibility, I just showed 2 examples here, Vision Operations and Vision Services, the responsibility definition for these, and then what you would normally do is set the MO operating unit to identify what operating unit is applicable to that responsibility. For a MOAC implementation, the responsibility itself looks identical. I mean, all you're doing is set up a basic responsibility using the same menu, same request group, or whatever is appropriate for that role. The difference is, instead of setting up MO operating unit, you're setting up MO security profile. I don't have the list of values, sorry, I thought I had a screenshot in here, but the list of values, when you're showing the security profile, this would show both MOAC, or show both the global security profiles and the standard security profiles in this list of values, which is why I said I recommend having MOAC or something. It could be JTH Global Security Profile or whatever name, so it's distinguished between a global and a non-global security profile. One important point to note is when you're setting up the global security profiles, you need to run a concurrent program that populates the data in the background called security list maintenance. Security list maintenance, again, isn't something that's in the standard system administrator responsibility request group. It should be, because it's certainly something that somebody with sysadmin access typically runs, or it should go into a custom request group, was more appropriately for your security administrator. So for the sake of illustration, I just added this to the security list maintenance to the request group for the system administrator responsibility, so I can run it through that. I normally don't recommend modifying standard request groups. I always like to see custom request groups built for each role, and just identify the reports and concurrent programs that are appropriate for that particular role. So what the impact really is, and I have a screenshot here, and I'll switch over to the application in a minute. What happens is, and this is the invoice entry form in the payables module, is this operating unit column becomes available, and in that you can select one of 3, in this case, operating units that you're defined within the global security profile. So you can do data entry for multiple operating units through one responsibility. And in some cases, there's actually a benefit of consolidating or combining the data entry. So in this case, it just allows you to do individual lines for each data entry. But I'm going to flip over here to the instance right now. I want to show you one example where this is the supplier creation process. And this is just one example of many I could show you, but what I've done here is created a test supplier, JTH supplier. I've created an address with this, and then now as I'm going in, let's just say you have a supplier that is used in multiple operating units, and you have a centralized master data management group, which is a great idea, by the way. It's something I recommend. And you wanted to apply this. You want to do the data entry one time for all 3 operating units. So in this case, I've got the site name is Greeley, and I can select that this new address then is created in all 3 operating units at the site level, because the supplier itself is shared across the all operating units, whereas the site information is independently set up if you're familiar with this form in an 11i environment. So in some cases, we're not just providing more flexibility in data entry, but we're also combining or making the data entry more accessible or quicker to do the data entry. So I think that's just basically the high-level overview of MOAC functionality. There's not a lot to setting it up. From a planning perspective, there's a lot to consider. What responsibilities get combined. I've seen a lot of advantage in building inquiry responsibilities where people are, like accounting departments, are accessing subledger data for multiple operating units for a variety of purposes. Or you have a centralized group, in let's say in the U.S. that's monitoring what's happening in multiple organizations throughout the world. They want to have inquiry access to that. This certainly, there's a lot of powerful uses of this, not just in a shared services environment. So hopefully that's helpful. I'll have this uploaded to the website here real quick, and you can download this and pass this on to other people in the organization if it's appropriate. And I have, again, provided my contact information at the end of this. Feel free to contact me with any questions or comments related to the subject. And I also want to give a shout out again to Solution Beacon, who's hosting this public domain instance, just saying thank you for doing this for the user community and for me in particular. Have a great day.